We'll call this meeting to order, the Moorhead EDA. We have a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members present today include Anderson, Balco, Paulson, Schofeld, Sobolik, Solin, Sumala, and White.
Thank you. Any agenda amendments?
We don't have any agenda amendments, but I will say we'd like to, since we did not have a meeting in December, we'd like to thank our former City Council member, Laura Caroon, for her services to the EDA for a number of years. So we're very grateful to Laura and the knowledge and the experience that she brought to this board. We also have a couple thank yous because we have some people terming out of the EDA, and that would be Bobby Celine and Alex Cusa, who's not here right now. So I know, Bobby, you've been a stalwart for us for a long time as well. Been our treasurer for a long time as well, and secretary. So we thank you, Bobby and Alex, for your service on the EDA as well.
Thank you, Derek. All right. Please review the minutes from November, I believe it was, and I'll take a motion in a second.
I'll move to approve the minutes from November 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Citizens to be heard. I think we'll have Sherry first of all.
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Sherry Larson. I'm the Executive Director for the Moorhead Business Association, and our mission is to promote and support and growth of the success of the members of the greater Moorhead area. We foster a thriving business community through networking opportunities, advocacy, events, as well as providing resources business need to succeed. I would like to introduce the MBA Board of Directors for 2025. Rhett Ortley with Ortley State Farm will be our president. Brett Overturf with Liberty Business Systems will be our vice president. John Becker with Choice Bank, treasurer. Cassie Temple with Beyond Marketing, and Benefits Plus, our secretary. Other board members would be Bill Bartholomew with Worth USA, Sarah Opitz with the Lotus Center, Cindy Cole-Softing with Altel, Alternative Telecom, Chad Johnson with Johnson's Auto Repair, Karsten Broadley with JBC Commercial, Richard Anderson with Tracy Adamson Photography, and Kim Schoutfeld with Kwame Real Estate. I would like to thank Kim Schoutfeld for her dedication and leadership as president for the MBA in 2024. Also like to recognize and thank Amber Solom with Gate City Bank for her years as an active member on the MBA board. We have Let's Talk Business. Their MBA members meet every Wednesday at the Moorhead American Legion at noon, and each week an MBA member shares their story, because their story matters. This week, we have Gary Hugo, with Vice President of the University Advancement with MSUM Foundation. Members meet the third Thursday of every month at Village Inn for the MBA Nonprofit Connect. We have a roundtable discussion with nonprofits sharing and supporting the materials of the greater good for our community. On January 16th, Maggie Ness, Executive Director for the Memory Cafe of the Red River Valley, will be sharing their story. The MBA January Nonprofit of the Month, we are doing a event where, well, I shouldn't say it's an event, it's a fundraiser, where the MBA will match donations up to $1,000 for the Moorhead Police Department K-9 unit. Their work has a significant role in increasing the safety of our community. It's cool to be cold in Moorhead. Join us for Freeze Your Balls Indoor Golf Tournament, sponsored by the Choice Bank, on the February 4th at the Clubhouse Indoor Golf Lounge. Register your team of 3 today. We have time slots still available. And then join us for the MBA happy hour following the tournament until 5:30 that evening. Again, that's February 4th. Come early, cheer on your team, network, and make connections. I invite you to engage, grow, and succeed with the MBA.
Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks again. Let's see, do we have anyone else? Nope, not for this one. Thank you. Any commissioners' reports? I don't believe so. Okay. We'll move on to 6A, Lisa Bodie.
I'll say good noon because it's almost noon. I'm Lisa Bodie. I'm the Governmental Affairs Director for the city, and I'm here to just give you a little preview of the 2025 legislative session, which starts January 14th. Included in your materials was a resolution that lists what the city's legislative priorities are. It's kind of a long list, and we can certainly stop and have questions during the listing, or I can save those till the end if you have any questions. But one of the city's biggest priorities for 2025 is working toward completion of all the city's in-town flood mitigation and those projects necessary for the FM diversion completion. In town, we need about $16 million to renovate existing lift stations in the cities. There's 7 of them that need to be updated to FEMA and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers standards for risk and reliability. And then outside of the city of Moorhead, there are additional projects necessary in Clay County and a little bit beyond to finish up the diversion project. And the grand total of everything is probably right around $60 million. And the next item on our list, so that falls into the capital investment category. And then on the taxes side of things is our border cities legislation, which is crucial to Moorhead businesses, as you are probably all very well aware. There are some opportunities that we think might be possible for expanding the border city enterprise zone, both financially and with regard to those items that are currently excluded from participating. There are items including entertainment venues and some things related to the hospitality industry that we cannot support with existing credits. And so we're going to look on at some language changes, as well as an increase in the sustainable appropriation that we got in 2018. So as we get a little bit further into that process, we might be asking the EDA for a resolution of support, anything to kind of bolster the case for the kinds of things that would really help us in a 21st century economy. And then the downtown project is even a more specific subset of that. You might recall, if you were on the board last year, that we sought an extension on the build-out period for the tax increment financing district for downtown. The normal limit is 5 years, and we were seeking an extension to 10 years. And while that was passed out of the House and Senate, there was no tax bill last year, and so we haven't reached the conclusion on that, so that's a carry forward request. And in addition, as you may know, City Hall is also undergoing renovation, and we were very successful in getting a sales tax exemption on the building materials for the Library Community Center, and we would like to do the same for City Hall and save that project, the cost of sales taxes on all of those building materials, which for the library project, it ended up being $1 million. This project is slightly smaller, but we'll quantify that and hopefully be able to save that project a little bit of money for the taxpayers of Moorhead. Moving on to public safety, we are looking to do anything and everything to support our law enforcement with recruitment and ensuring that we have the stability in our police and fire departments that we need to provide that level of protection for the city of Moorhead. So Mayor Carlson has been working in partnership with M-State and other partners, and hopefully we can get skills training here in Moorhead and so that our potential officers would be able to have closer access to the training that right now they would have to travel to Alexandria to get. So we're looking to reduce the barriers to entering the law enforcement field. And moving on to a transportation initiative, our transit department has now transitioned. We are buying service from the city of Fargo, and we no longer have a transit manager in the city of Moorhead. There were some changes with the growth that has happened in our community. Instead of Fargo Moorhead being one of the largest small transportation systems, transit systems, we are now one of the smallest of the large transportation systems. And we're unique in the state of Minnesota in that the metro area gets specific apportionments for their transit systems. And in greater Minnesota, it's all kind of lumped together, and there's a little bit of uncertainty in what projects will be funded by the state and which ones will not be. And what we'd look for is more certainty and having not necessarily a significantly higher amount of money for the transit system, but that we would have the opportunity to have a dedicated amount for Moorhead that can be used a little bit. We can do better forecasting, better budgeting on the transportation side of things so that, Moorhead has more certainty as we work with the new arrangement with Fargo. Our transit manager of, 34 years as transit manager, but our transit manager, Lori Van Beek, retired just a couple weeks ago. And so lots of changes in our transportation transit department. And then Derek has probably briefed you all on the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Facility. We've been categorizing that one as needs yet to be determined. The state legislature made a lot of legislative policy decisions in 2023 that put us in a better position to attract that facility. A lot still has to fall into place, but we are hopeful that as we're going to be nimble and try to work through any challenges that might exist to make sure that we have the best possible chance to get a wonderful facility like that up and operating in our community. Moving right into our partnership projects, you've also had briefings, I believe, by Fauzia Addy on the Cultural Mall. That project is advancing a little bit. Fauzia's group has a purchase agreement on a property on on Center and 8th Street, and with developer Kevin Bartram, and we're excited that she's making progress toward opening that cultural mall, which will bring some really interesting experiences, I think, to our entire community. And she's a woman with a vision, and I'm excited for what she can do to add to what we're doing in downtown. Other projects that the City Council has determined are things that would really benefit us and that they will support include the Heartland Trail extension into Moorhead, the Jasmine Child Care Facility, Clay County's vision for the Residential Psychiatric Treatment Center, the FM diversion, passenger rail service, and legislative initiatives to enhance services at the Moorhead High School Career Academy. Recreation amenities and other things that the League of Minnesota Cities and Greater Minnesota Cities Coalition are advancing on our behalf are also part of our strategy. We have 2 contract lobbyists in St. Paul. Those contracts are funded through the EDA, one with Frederickson and Byron and one with Flaherty and Hood. And that helps allow us in Moorhead here to stay informed on what's happening day to day in the legislature. And then we make strategic trips down to St. Paul to advocate specifically for Moorhead. So that's really our policy agenda. And on the political side, I'm not going to get deep into that. I will tell you that our delegation is stable. Senator Kupek was not up for reelection this year. Representatives Joy and Keeler were both reelected to their seats. And in the initial planning are in assistant leader positions within their caucuses. So that can't be bad for Moorhead in any stretch of the imagination, so that's good. After the election, the House was tied, 67-67, and the Senate had a one-vote Democrat majority. Things are changing. There has been a death of one of the state senators, and there's been a resignation of a state representative. And so there are going to be special elections on January 28th to deal with those vacancies. And so the majority is still in flux, I would say. And so it will make for a very interesting session. And we're going to try to stay out of the politics of that and just advance our activities and advocate for Moorhead in every audience that we can get. So that was quite a laundry list. I don't know how to make it a lot more entertaining, but I'd sure be happy to answer questions that you might have.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Yes, Derek.
I just have one thing to add, and Lisa did a great job and do great work for us too in St. Paul. She did mention some events, and one thing I think for our EDA members to keep an eye out for is the Chamber is hosting the Moorhead Area Day at the Capitol again this year. That looks like it's going to be March 4th and 5th. So we'll have more information to share once we get a little bit more detail from the Chamber, but something to kind of keep an eye out. We had a good contingency the last couple of years. Last year was better than the year before, so hoping we have great numbers. And like we've always talked about, the more people we can have present and sharing the great work that's done in our community, and also sharing the needs that we have in our community, I think is impactful when we're discussing that with our local legislators as well as statewide legislators as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I believe Derek has the remaining items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so just a couple quick things here. We're going to get into a little bit of the stuff that's happening in our downtown. Another event that's happening that I think I'll just straight out share right away is this week we have the Mayor's State of the Cities on Thursday morning, January 9th. So as a part of that conversation, the Chamber has asked each community to focus on a certain area. I think there's, in Fargo, there's a diversion. I think there's stuff on the convention center. And then in Moorhead, they asked us to focus on the downtown project, actually. So we get a great little single kind of 5-minute showcase to share what's happening and the good work that's going. And last year, Lisa Borgen was able to highlight the Library Community Center. And this year, one of my Downtown Moorhead Inc. board members, Ted Haran from RDO, is going to speak for the 5 minutes on the downtown project. So grateful for Ted to step up and share the great work that's happening in our downtown. And as I mentioned in my economic development report, we're really starting to see the first glimpses of what a new skyline looks like in downtown Moorhead, which is quite exciting. Every week it's changing. Mr. Kevin Bartram's project is coming up quickly. I know I've enjoyed over the last month just coming down Center Avenue and seeing the progress there. And just over the last couple of weeks prior to Christmas, there was the steel frames coming out of the Library Community Center space too. So just an exciting time. Some detail work that's kind of happening in that area as well, as we have the infrastructure that was done right before the end of the year. So our engineering team was working hard to finish the new 6th Street extension north into the property. So that was critical for a couple different reasons. One, finishing before it got cold and snow and everything else, but also providing access to those businesses that are remaining. It's like Downtown Chiropractic and Moorhead Vision, some of those businesses that can access that parking lot right off of Center Avenue. So that has been completed. We are still working towards demolition later here this winter, and hopefully before early spring, on the stuff west of City Hall. So demolition west of City Hall, all that building there, the portion south of the existing City Hall, and then the hallway on what would be the new Fifth Street, on the east side of the new Fifth Street that comes up. So all that will be demolished here in the spring to make way for new infrastructure projects and new development as well. Amy has been hard at work with, we're trying to prepare for another deed redevelopment grant. So again, everything west of City Hall, we received a $1 million deed redevelopment grant, which was historic. There's really only $2 million in the program, $1 million for the Metro, $1 million for Greater Minnesota, and we saw that $1 million come here to Moorhead. So that was great work by Amy and team to just be ready and prepared and see that funding come in. We do have another round of that grant. There's a deadline on February 1st, and we'll be looking to apply for demolition for the east side of City Hall, so the last portion of demolition as well. So we're working hard at that, trying to see if we can get a little bit more funding into the project. There's a lot of projects happening in the surrounding area, so we continue to work with developers, but I know Lisa mentioned the Moorhead Cultural Mall, and we've been certainly working with Fauzia and Kevin Bartram on what that project could look like. The Fairmont Flats are getting closer. It's been great to see that project happen on First Avenue, as well as of just some of the progression of some of the other projects. As mentioned, City Hall renovation is underway. I don't know if Dan, if you wanted to share anything on the City Hall renovation briefly. You don't have to if you don't want to. I know we're working with McGough. I mean, there's a lot of work to still do, but certainly the contract is underway with McGough, and we're working closely with them to meet our needs and make sure that project's fully completed to the future needs of City Hall. But in the meantime, as mentioned in previous EDA meetings, the City Hall is kind of split right now with some folks here at the UMCOM Center. Otherwise, the top floors over at the former U.S. Bank building are occupied by city staff as well. So that's where you can access city staff at this point in time. Other things related to City Hall and the new Library Community Center is the Library Community Center is well underway, but a detail of that is the Center for Entrepreneurship. As mentioned, our former council member Laura Caroon is taking an active look at how we can, how she can really energize that and be prepared for not just an afterthought of when we open the library, and this happens to be a part of it, but actually have some planning that goes into it. So when we open that Library Community Center, we have a fully functioning Center for Entrepreneurship as well. So stay tuned for some more information on that in early 2025 here, and hopefully we can get into some preparation to be successful with that. I think the only other thing I was going to mention is in your packet, we have a summary of the August 12th Urban Land Institute Navigating Your Competitive Future workshop summary. That was a great conversation. I know many of our EDA members and council members showed up to that here at the UMCOM Center. We had some local developers, and Brian Bachman with Enclave, Mike Almendinger with Kilbourne, and then a couple other folks that do some development work as well as some senior housing that was really able to give us a diverse kind of look at what our community may need and what they see in successful communities. But there's a lot of great stuff in that summary, so I would encourage our EDA members, council members, members of the public to take a look at that as well. With that, I think I'll pause to see if anybody has any questions on the downtown project.
Yes, Commissioner White.
Thank you. And actually, Derek, I just want to talk about what you were just touching on, which is that ULI Minnesota report, because I really liked it, and I thought there were some very good recommendations. So I thought that was a good event, but I appreciated that they took the time to put this together and give us some very specific recommendations. And so my question is, can we spend a little time talking about what's next? Because one of the things that I hate is when you get something like this and then it goes on a shelf and we're like, nothing ever happens with it. So when I read through those recommendations, you know, some of it would be something that we could discuss here, some of it's planning, but what can we do to sort of get that conversation moving so that we could perhaps implement some of these recommendations?
Yes, maybe if it's all right, I'll jump on that one. Just in the spirit of being consistent with local plans and studies, this was some really great information. The idea that the Urban Land Institute has when it offers to host these conversations is to bring people that are investing, developing, building, to the table, and as a community, whether we're city council members, economic development authority members, planning commission members, we're positioned to kind of like to listen, to learn, to believe in what is possible, and then to go out and do the public service necessary to create in our downtown what we're calling a neighborhood. And so it was a great opportunity to do that. And frankly, one of the first outside of the Twin Cities. They're doing these in different areas in the metro. So we're kind of leading the pack. The experience that the Urban Land Institute had here went very well, and the resources being offered to other communities across the state too. So thank you all for being there, those that were able to make it. Showing up is one of the biggest parts to begin with, and it worked. And so what is provided are these summaries that communities can use to inform those local plans and summary studies. So opportunities to do that. You know, our downtown master plan is about 5 years old. Was it 2020?
December 2020 is when it was approved.
You know, so, you know, we want to come back and look at that. When we've gone through that downtown master plan, a lot of the things that we thought was possible, that we wanted to see, they're happening, they're in place. This might be a nice time to bring that kind of group together to take a look at where are we now, and are we going where we wanted to, and are there any adjustments to make. This is also really important work as it relates to the entire community in our comprehensive plan, our Onward Moorhead comprehensive plan that was approved in 2022. So I think in the spirit of kind of staying ahead and generating plans and studies that actually work rather than serve as really great doorstops, it would do us well to maybe find time to stop along the way and do a little workshop and take a look at where we're at in terms of strategic direction.
And I would say too, I mean, Commissioner or Councilmember White, I would say because it touches on many different departments, like you mentioned, planning, economic development, city council, budget, et cetera. Like we talked a little bit about a workshop at some point in time. Maybe there's a more joint one that could happen as a brown bag session or something. But yeah, I think it has to be looked at collectively, not just individually too. So hopefully we can find the right space and the right group to really have a facilitated conversation that gets us to where we need to go to.
Any other commissioner questions, comments?
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to the economic development report. There's really only a couple things that I'll focus on here too, and Lisa mentioned one of them, and that's the DG Fuels project. So for those folks that are just interested in what's going on, conversations continue. I would say the big one that happened in December is the state of Minnesota and the Department of Employment and Economic Development has what they call as a business first stop. So that is a coordinated effort by DEED to bring in the 9 regulatory agencies in the state of Minnesota to have a conversation with the company. It's really only been the state working with the company. They really haven't opened it up to local partners to sit in, but I thankfully had the opportunity to sit in on it. So it was a virtual conversation with many different partners, but it was a great, I think, stepping stone and just kind of understanding, I think for one, all those regulatory partners to understand what the project may be, understanding where they're at with their timelines, and then what process may look like for permitting. Permitting is obviously a big part of this, is a project of this size and scope. But it was an encouraging conversation. Every department was expressing desires over seeing something like this happen. And I think that's been an effort from the state leadership and the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Hub that's been created between the state and greater MSP and many other partners, Delta, et cetera. So there's encouragement there. I will say, and I mentioned this before, that DG Fuels right now is focusing on their Louisiana plant. That's where their main focus is in trying to get federal funding for a guaranteed loan program. If they can receive that funding, then that will serve as a benchmark to kind of duplicate that to other areas that they're looking to do this as well. So we, again, stand ready. Our hope is to meet with them in early 2025. I know Joel and serving on Moorhead Public Services Board, Moorhead Public Service and Missouri River Energy has been looking at some power study needs. We anticipate having a conversation between Missouri River Energy and MPS and DG Fuels just to understand the timeline of that. We just want to make sure we're staying ahead of it and again, understanding the full scope of what may be required on the site and hopefully be able to land this project too. So that's the DG Fuels one. Again, much more to come. The other one that, again, is I think an important mention is the announcement of the closure of the Anheuser-Busch plant. I think that caught a lot of us off guard. I think folks that have been in the city for a long period of time understood that there was always some challenges with the site and being one of the smallest malting facilities in Anheuser-Busch's portfolio. But our hope was that we could, help grow expansions, et cetera. Obviously, some changes occurred from their leaderships and some of their contracts. I know City Manager Molly and Mayor Shelley Carlson were able to meet with Anheuser-Busch leadership during that announcement as well and just kind of talk about what next steps may look like. I think the latest I heard was about 41 employees at the site. The contracts with the farmers are still being upheld to the new facility where the new malting facility. So it's not affecting our farmers so much as what we may thought. But there's obviously just a lot of what can happen with that building. They anticipate to bring on a national and a local partnership or a broker. So our hope is that we'll work with that group, understand, maybe examples of what has been done with existing facilities like this. The other big one that's out there is the land that's in front of it was protected, so no development could happen on that. So maybe there's some opportunities to release some of that land and see some development on there too. So, I get a lot of questions on this, and I think it's worth, mentioning and a lot of concern of what could happen there. The thing I will say is that there's not many sites that have an existing building, but also utility and rail access. So that is a desirable thing. It's just, again, finding the compatible use. And I see Joey's here with the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. I know Ryan in their office had reached out about connecting with Phil Schneider. They've been working with him. He's a national site selector. And just having a conversation, again, of getting his experience of across the nation, what has been done with similar type facilities. So I think we got a great regional outlook on this and how we can repurpose that facility and hopefully see a quick transition on that as well. So be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have on that project or the Sustainable Aviation Fuel project as well.
Questions? Nope. Don't believe so.
Right. Lots of work on that. And we're excited to have as many projects as we have going. Obviously, there's ups and downs in everything that we do, but we hope that we'll just continue to have great conversations with a lot of great businesses and developers that are showing the encouragement of what can be possible in Moorhead, and we've been showing that as well. So I'm excited to see what can happen with it too. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And Amy's spotting it out for me here too. So there's a couple other things that are happening. One, Courts and Pints is still progressing nicely too. So our hope is that in spring we'll see the pickleball activity happening inside there too. So excited to see that. And then another one that got a lot of attention over the last couple weeks here is the announcement of Mangoes moving into the former Boulder Tap restaurant space. So we're still trying to get a lot more information from them and seeing how we can help them and serve their needs too. But excited to see that space be activated again and a great restaurant that's got a great reputation in this region as well.
Very good. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, one.
Sorry.
One more.
Yeah, I was just going to point out in the information updates too. So you'll see the regular meeting schedule in there with the dates for our EDA meetings. One other thing that got mentioned too before the meeting is we do have on January 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the UMCOM Center. The Minnesota DOT is hosting an open house for our Highway 1075 construction project. So it's a big project. I would encourage anybody and everybody to show up to that, ask questions. We'll certainly try to share that out to as many folks as we can, but we know that's a multi-phase project with certainly a lot of other projects happening too. So if you have the chance, January 14th, 4:30 to 6:30 at the Yumcom Center, Minnesota DOT open house for Highway 1075.
Say, can I just poke my nose in on that one? So I don't know if when we say Highway 1075, if folks know how big a deal that is, because this is what people are talking about when we talk about 8th Street. It's also Highway 10 coming in and 75, and then Main, and whatever that connection looks like to Center. So it really are the state highways that come through town. I believe MnDOT's going to be working here for quite a while. So folks that are concerned about traffic and road conditions on 8th Street in particular, and how that feels when you come into our downtown, certainly please show up, and there'll be some great maps and pictures and conversations happening there.
And I think Dan's right. I mean, the scope is large. I mean, this goes all the way into Dilworth too. So, I mean, it's a large project scope. So lots of impacts, lots of businesses and individuals that it touch. So it's your opportunity to ask questions. We always encourage people to show, because that's the best way to get the information right from the source in Minnesota DOT.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.